Welcome back to another episode of Tips and Tricks for Writing Fics. It was episode 3, and we'll be looking at original characters. Now, a lot of you writers make or break your work on original characters. I know I say that a lot. But I did the same thing. I started writing, my second fan fiction contained original characters. And they have ever since, too. Yeah, as far as I can remember, they have ever since. And I use it mostly as a tool to practice and work out the kinks of my original characters for my original work. So there's a purpose. And even if that's not why you want your OCs, they still serve a purpose. And hopefully I'll be able to give you some tips to better fulfill what purpose they have, and to help you better engage your readers and make them important to them and to where your readers will care about them. But some of these tips are probably going to be kind of rough for you because they give you some restrictions. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be worthwhile in the end. I think you have much better chances at making them a successful character if you keep some of these tips in mind. Take care of making your OC a main character. It's gonna be kind of hit and miss when you're writing a fic that focuses on a character your readers don't know. Because people read fan fiction to read about characters that they love, that they understand, and that they're familiar with. So you really need to be cautious of what position you put your original character into. It's definitely something that you're going to have to keep in mind. Just because the character is original, it's not an excuse to half-ass your job. Just because this character is yours doesn't mean that you can just, open the floodgates and let it happen as it stands. You still have to take the time to build them, to nurture them, to create them as a person, to decide, what's their pros and cons, what do they look like, where are they from. You need to go through the whole brainstorming process and make this character as real as you can, regardless of the fact that you may just be using fan fiction to practice with them or to build them up. You have to find a way to make them complete. Don't assume or write like your audience knows everything or nothing about your character. Hero, villain, middle of the road, it doesn't matter. You still need to follow proper pacing to expose this character to your audience, to expose his intentions and his ideals and his fears, their fears, I guess. It could be male or female. I don't mean to specify. You got to do the work. You have to do the proper execution. It's an original character, and they deserve just as much of your attention, if not more, than the canon characters you're working with. You have to make and take the time. Let me see. Take care of how you introduce them, especially if you have more than one. Subtlety is going to be your best friend when it comes to your original characters, because, like I said before, fan fiction readers want to read about characters they care about, that they're familiar with. And as long as you're not shoving your original characters in their face, I think that they'd be willing to open up and accept your original characters as part of the canon, as part of the story, just as long as you take care. Don't force feed it to them. Don't rub it in their face, especially if you're using fan fiction to build a character that you want to use later on for something original. You don't want them to take. You don't want to force your reader to care about them, because then they won't. It's human nature. You can't force anyone to care about anything. They either care or they don't. So just use some discretion, some subtlety when putting a character, and an original character at all, into a fan fiction, especially if they serve a particular purpose. You can't spend all your time on them and ignore your canon characters. So make sure they're complete, and don't force them in it. If they don't fit, they don't fit. And that may mean you have to go back and retool things, but that's what fan fiction's about. It's kind of cutting your teeth as a writer. So it's a really good opportunity to keep all that together. Let's see. Make sure their design fits the canon in some way. Even the way they talk, their manner should be setting appropriate. If you're working with a medieval story, unless unless it's Doctor Who, you're not going to be able to get away with very easily having a character that goes outside of your medieval setting. If you're writing sci-fi, it's kind of a good rule of thumb. Just keep the theme together unless it serves a specific purpose. I mean, Doctor Who's being a great example. A time traveler would be one of the only ways you could get away with a setting inappropriate character. It's kind of a no-brainer. But it's equally important that you keep your original character's setting appropriate. I've made that mistake so many times. In my first few major size, like novel-sized, if you could even call them novel-sized, fanfiction, I had characters that were out of place, so they weren't received very well at all. It just felt like I felt like it blew up in my face. So you really want to take care that the character looks like it belongs there. Even though in fanfiction, in literature in general, your readers aren't going to physically see your character, you still need to take care that they fit visually. So that means you got to keep your narrative really sharp on how they look, how they carry themselves, their accents if they have one, the way the just down to their toenails. You got to make sure that your narrative takes care of making them fit. Original characters can be plot vital. They can be plot sensitive. But again, you have to take some serious care as to how. Otherwise, you run the risk of them taking, I guess you could say, taking the fire away from your canon characters. And that's not generally something that you want. I made that mistake with Sinners and Saints. It was a Bleach fic, and God, I ripped it a new one. That is probably one of my least favorite pieces because of all the poor choices I made. And I'll admit that probably came from the fact that I didn't really read or understand a lot of Bleach. I made a lot of mistakes in regards to simply just not knowing. It was an idea that I had, and I chose to write it, even though I probably shouldn't. A lot of people liked it, but me not so much. So I kind of use that as a gauge to how far I've come and where I still need to go as far as original characters goes. Because I had a slew of original characters, and while a lot of them I pulled off really well individually, how they fit into the story and the way they moved the plot just didn't quite work. But unfortunately for me, a lot of times I don't know how to change it because it is what it is, and I can't envision it any differently than than how I wrote it. So that's kind of a problem for me personally, and it may be a problem for some of you. So really take care to make sure that your original characters fit and that they don't bring too much focus onto themselves as far as plot goes, so that your canon characters are still at the forefront. You're still giving your readers at the core what they want, but you're still expressing your own original ideas. Use your discretion, but try to use any honest reviews you get. Flames and ass-kissing aside, try and use your criticism to gauge your ability to tell the story. Because I had a wonderful reader from overseas really get in-depth discussions with me over the psychology behind Farrell, behind Lightning's personality at early points in the story, and the interactions with the other members of the house, especially Sarah and Fang. And she's like, well, I'm worried about this. I don't want it to end up like this. And I had a lot of readers telling me they didn't want it to end up like Lightning impressing on Fang as her new master. So, and I got a lot of great criticism about. A lot of my readers were just terrified of that being the case. And the one reader from overseas, we just got into like essay-sized emails about, well, I've read this article and I've read that article and I've experienced this, I've seen this on TV, I've read this here. And it was a wonderful discussion, and I really took a lot from it. weeks at a time, months at a time, we'd just be ping-ponging back and forth. It's like, well, it could end up like this, and I've read research papers about this happening. Well, maybe you could try this. Well, I'm planning on this, and I think I can make this work. Your reviewers are going to be painfully honest when they choose to be, and that is something you can't take for granted. You can't just take it as face value. It's something you really need to hang on to and teach yourself with. Your reviewers are going to be so honest, sometimes it hurts. And sometimes you're gonna just fret about it. If you really care about your literature, you're gonna be up at night sometimes. I was. So don't feel bad if it bothers you. You don't have to express that in a response. You don't even have to respond. Just say thanks for all the fish and be on your way. But you can really learn from your reviews, you know, what kind of tweaks and adjustments you can make to the way you're telling a story, to the way you're molding a character through your reviews. So just that's really one of the best things you can do, especially with original characters. It's the best thing you can do is to pay attention to what your readers are saying. That's actually kind of short, but I guess we could go ahead and go into the recap. Take care of making your OC a main character. Your readers want to read about characters they're familiar with. They're not going to want to spend a lot of time on someone they don't know unless they're already open to the idea. You got to assure your reader in the beginning, hey, this story is mainly about the characters you love and you know. However, I've added a little bit and I would really like for you to take a look. I want to share this new stuff with you. So please, you know, take it in if you can, if you'd like. So don't force them to read about your OC. Weave them into the story, and but try not to make them the main focal point. Unless, of course, that's the story you want to write. I'm not going to guarantee a lot of people are going to read it, but sometimes you just got to forego that to express yourself. Just because your character is an original character, don't half-ass the job of building them. I've made that mistake so many times, I can't even count. I just assumed that my readers knew everything, and just went on with it without really taking the time to build and research and consider, you know, the nuances of this character compared to the canon ones, and I just fucked up royally. So make and take the time for your original characters and make them people, not just, you know, a name and a narrative. They need to be human, unless they aren't human, but they need to be the best whatever they are they can be. And just because they're yours and you know everything about them doesn't mean that your readers do. So take care and proper pacing when you're introducing this character to your readers. Subtlety is your best friend. A lot of these tips tie into subtlety, and that you can't force feed your reader your original characters. You just can't. You're not gonna make them like it. It's not like spinach. You can't make them eat it. But so just it's gonna be a lot of gut instinct stuff, like a lot of my tips will be eventually. But that shouldn't be that difficult. After you've written for a while, you're gonna find that instinct, and it's really gonna help you out. But just follow your instincts, but don't overdo it with your original characters. There's plenty of time and space in word processor to work out your character properly. Make sure that they're theme accurate. Make sure they're theme appropriate. If it's medieval, try and keep them medieval. If it's sci-fi, try and keep them sci-fi or something that would fit in a sci-fi universe, such as an alien or, you know, an insectoid life form, whatever. Unless, of course, you're going for time travel, then that's kind of an open field for you to play with. But just try and keep the themes proper. Their manner, the way they dress, the way they carry themselves, the way they talk should fit. Unless, of course, you go for the time traveler one. Your original characters can be plot vital. You can pull that off if you try. But just be very, very careful that you don't take the thunder away from the canon characters, because in the end, that's what fanfiction is. It's being a fan of characters and writing about them. So just be careful. It's okay for an OC to be the focal point of like a questing fic or whatever. It's okay for them to serve a paramount purpose. However, don't make the story all about them. You just got to take some care with that. Use your reviews as learning tools. You're never going to get more honest feedback than you will from a lot of fanfiction readers, because they realize that they don't have a big name to give them influence. They don't have, they're not a reviewer for a living, and you're not a writer for a living, so they feel like the anonymity of the internet gives them power. And to be completely honest, to a degree, it does. However, you got to learn to sift through the honest criticism and the crap, because you're going to get a lot of that. Just trust me, you're going to get a lot of crap, especially if you get a lot of good reviews. It just seems to kind of draw the flies in, and you got to learn to take it in stride, but learn from all of it. Even if all you learn is how to ignore haters, that's okay. That's still something you've learned. And always be humble and grateful for what reviews you get. Don't just accept praise. Show that you are genuinely appreciative. And that's gonna keep your readers sympathetic to what you're doing. They're gonna realize, hey, you're working hard and your heart's in the right place. You're not just doing this for reviews. You're not just doing this for attention. But that kind of gets off of it. But yeah, use your reviews, the honest reviews, as a way to gauge where you are telling your story and how they're receiving your original characters. Even if they don't make any mention of it, a review saying that they're enjoying the story, that they're liking where it's going, that they're excited about what's coming next, still includes your original character in their praise. So just use it as a gauge. Just keep it in mind. So just subtlety is your best friend with an original character, and you're going to want to build them as best as you can before you insert them in the story. Make sure your plot's right. Make sure they fit. And don't force them to fit. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Try something else. So that's episode 3 of Tips and Tricks for Writing Fics Original Characters. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you'll tune in again for episode 4, Theme and Voice. I know I covered this in the manuscript edition, but it's still slightly different for fanfics, and hopefully I'll be able to help you find the difference and build a better story with some of these tips. If I didn't cover anything in the video and you still have a question or would have a suggestion of something you'd like for me to cover, please leave a comment or a question, or you can visit me on DA can't speak today, luckyfirerabbit.deviantart.com, and just drop me a note, or you can email me. My email address is up there, or you can just send me whatever. If you got something to say, please tell me, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for joining me. Episode 4 will be Theme and Voice, and I hope to see you there.